yeah, I'm going to kind of talk a little bit about sort of agile transformation at Sky and how we've kind of put experimentation into that. Just a little bit conscious of time. I think we've overrun a little bit, so I'm gonna just kind of get straight on with this. So I guess this is usually the really easy bit for me. I guess most people know who Sky are as a brand, especially a lot of the UK guys on this call. Just in case anybody who doesn't, so we're basically Europe's leading entertainment company. We operate across 7 European countries, over 31,000 employees and 25 million customers. So basically at Sky, it's our entire mission to provide our customers with just things that they love, right? So this is getting all of our employees to help connect customers with the very best services that we've got. So this is across broadband, talk, mobile, and of course TV products. And what this means to us is offering the best entertainment, both homegrown and also the kind of the best entertainment that we can get globally, covering sports, movies, news, and of course arts. Quickly, a little bit about me. So I've kind of spent the last 10 years helping sort of businesses build experimentation programs. So you may hear this referenced as stuff like CRO, optimization, test and learn, those kind of things. So right now I run the experimentation program across Sky. So in my day job, my team and I, we spend most of our time working within our agile product teams to ensure that we're delivering products and services which actually work for customers. And we do this using a really scientific approach to A/B testing to make sure we've just got evidence and everything that we're doing is really, really customer centric. But I guess a large part of my job involves me spending a lot of time going out and working with teams right across Sky to help them build a kind of real and meaningful cultural change. So encouraging these teams to adopt a real customer-focused, iterative, and much more agile way of working, and trying to put experimentation right at the core of that. So as you can imagine, it's can be quite an intense role, but it's super fun. And I also get a really good job title. So like Senior Experimentation Manager sounds pretty cool, right? It's just like I say, it's really fun getting teams to think about this completely new approach to working. I'm not going to spend too much time talking about the ins and outs of what Agile is, how it works, more how we've kind of moved past some of the basic stuff and taking Agile slightly wider than tech, and how we've sort of embraced experimentation in that journey. Just kind of wanted to start with this. So this is part of the kind of why we knew we needed to change to be more agile. And thinking back to those external influences that kind of Robert and Matt mentioned earlier, we could really see that customers were fundamentally changing how they were choosing to interact with us. And we knew that our old processes, where we kind of embarked on massive multi-year re-platforming programs, which may have been based on somebody's opinion of what we think we should be doing, that was really going to start to cause us some issues. We sort of realized that setup just wouldn't work for us. We needed to be more focused on creating these experiences which were really driven by customers, not by whoever had the loudest voice in the meetings. We needed to be much more focused on constant and quick and iterative development. We needed to be able to move really, really fast. And if you think last year, so in 2020, we saw that 90% of customers who were interacting with us were only using digital channels. So this means 9 out of 10 customers who have a customer service reason to contact Sky, these customers are completely serviced and actions and contained within our digital channels, which for us, Sky, is a massive achievement. So it's only like sort of 4 or 5 years ago, this was down at the kind of 70% mark. So it's a real fundamental change in how customers are choosing to interact with us. And this is kind of where I wanted to sort of start. And I think this is the most important lesson when it comes to Agile. I think all the other speakers that have kind of mentioned there's a crossover between Agile and transformation, and there's a lot of other things that we use interchangeably. But For me, Agile needs to be much more than a few post-it notes, a quick Kanban board, a new name, and maybe a couple of shiny new processes to succeed. What you really need is a real and fundamental cultural change throughout your organization to make this work. So as an Agile manager, you need to be able to foster this culture which is open and collaborative, a culture of autonomy where ownership is not literally just top down. You need a culture where you don't just blindly follow a plan or maybe a roadmap. And you need to have a culture where you're prepared to pivot on what customers are telling you about your services. And you need to be prepared to be wrong. I'm going to cover that a little bit more later. But I think for me, and this is 100% the most important thing. Quite selfishly for me, I think if you're going to take one thing away from today's session, it should definitely be this, that you need to focus more on the concept of being agile, not just doing agile. Like for me, that I think is the most important thing that that you can take. This is trying to help sort of visualize this. So you can see for us at Sky that that creating this capability and the process to actually do agile is only part of the journey at Sky. So you can see that the cultural change is just as, if not more important, than just building this capacity and this capability to do agile. And as we get more and more mature as an agile organization, this cultural change becomes more and more and more important to us. Anybody with a keen eye might notice that this doesn't have an end date, and that's 100% on purpose. This cultural change is something that it can't stop. It needs to be ongoing. It just needs to kind of run, and it's just not enough for us to say we're doing agile. That's just not how we do things internally at Sky. We really have to live it. It has to come through our entire organization from the top down, cross functions, cross directions. This needs to be not just something that we do on paper or in a few technology teams dotted around the business. This needs to be something bigger. It needs to be something transformational. And again, hopefully you kind of get that from this kind of really simple diagram. So this is kind of a little bit tongue in cheek, but I think this is probably something that most people are really familiar with, right? This kind of sort of very formal siloed approach to development or change, where somebody goes off, spends an age, we gather a load of detailed requirements, we write out a load of really, really detailed documentation. There's no real collaboration in that with anybody else who might be involved further down the process. So let's call these guys maybe developers, perhaps. And we create this monolith, right? We have this massive thing that we want to deliver. We build this plan of delivery. The end date of this plan is so far in the future that it just feels like another time zone. And then we hand over this kind of thing to the design team, and that requirements team are off to the next thing, right? We kind of design something. Nobody really knows if it's what the user really wants anymore because these teams have all moved on to different things. Nobody really knows if it can be built in any kind of really efficient way, but we kind of go off, we design it, and then we hand it over to the kind of build phase. I think importantly, by this time, a couple of things have probably happened. We're probably starting to run out of time and probably funding as we get kind of closer and closer and closer to this kind of delivery date, to the deadline. And secondly, and this is probably the most important thing, the world has probably moved on. We know things moved fast now in digital. And if you think of the impact something like coronavirus has had across the entire sort of world, everything has started to change. The requirements, are we sure that they're still relevant? But, we're kind of, we're knee deep in this now. We need to continue. We need to get to the end. So we kind of build something. We go off, we'll build it. Hopefully it resembles the initial idea. We hand something back to the business. I guess at this point, nobody's really happy with it. but we've put a lot of time and effort into this thing, and we need to launch it, and we just really have to hope that it's still relevant. We need to really hope that customers at least don't hate it. But I guess at this time, we've kind of we've forgotten why we started this in the first place, and everybody's moved on to the next thing. And if it don't work, well, I guess we'll just blend the data or something like that. But it's not. You can see it's not a great way to approach things. But for us at Sky, there's definitely another way. There's another approach, and kind of while on the surface, this process, it looks a lot like the old way, and there are definitely parts of that we need. There are a couple of fundamental changes here, which for us are really important. And this is about moving from that kind of launch and pray mentality to a really focused experiment, learn, iterate mentality. And what this does is it allows us to be super flexible. It allows us to break down this monolith into bite-sized delivery. All of our delivery plans now have a really relevant end date. It's something we can see. It's something we can understand. We can contextualize when that is in the future. It's a couple of weeks away, not a year away. Now we're shipping things little and often. We can bring in this real focus of customers because we can get product in front of customers as quick as possible. So we can make sure these changes are relevant and they're genuinely making an impact, and it's the impact that we're expecting. At this point, we're now getting real and contextual and relevant data and feedback from customers. They're telling us what's working and what's not working. And if we find something isn't working as expected, that's great. We can pivot. We can constantly reassess our requirements. We can go back to design. We're no longer working in silos. So we've got this real collaborative approach through MVP and beyond. And at this point, the customer experience of this delivery becomes everybody's problem, not just the final delivery team's problem. And so in fact, for us at Sky, releasing anything without it being subject to an experiment and iterating forwards from that, that's just completely alien to us now. Sort of experimentation and testing all of our features, all of our releases, means that we're constantly putting the customer's needs first. And this really gives us a huge confidence in our delivery, that we can now understand the real value in what these teams and new functionalities add into the business. I think this super simple diagram, it really shows the essence of why we believe so much in Agile, particularly around experimentation so much at Sky. And so what we've seen right across our entire organization is far too many ideas that could be genuinely game-changing things just fall by the wayside. And that's, there's several reasons in that. Maybe because somebody thinks it's just too hard to execute. Maybe they don't align to a current view or strategy, or maybe our appetite for risk is a little bit compromised. But then on the other side of this diagram, we're sometimes so confident that something just feels like a good idea. We've all heard it. It's a no-brainer, right? It's just a no-brainer. We want to run into it full steam ahead. And a lot of the time, we're completely wrong about that. And it's thinking about that humility thing is super important to us at Sky. So what we do with experimentation is we provide a toolkit to be able to understand, protect, and basically make something of all of these ideas that we have. And we also sort of coach and support teams through this change and its impact, and the impact it's having on customers and the business. And what we're really looking for is this sweet spot, just where something might initially look like a bad idea, but it's actually a really great idea. But also that understanding of these kind of no-brainers that we think are great ideas, are they actually working for customers? And this approach is really what makes us be able to push the boundaries and work on the deliveries that mean the most to our customers. And anybody that's kind of familiar working with Agile is familiar with MVP. which is, this is basically a minimum viable product. So it's a version of the thing that you're working on with just enough features to be usable by an early customer. And for us at Sky, this is a great way to work. But even at that level, sometimes you probably put a little bit too much time and effort into something to be able to really, really pivot. So to help us with this and to help us really, really go fast, we kind of have this concept of a minimum viable experiment. And what this is taking this concept of agility, but taking it one step further, right? So, and this is something that we've kind of really championed on my team since right from the beginning, right from day one. And this is using your approach of agility to get right under the skin of an idea and really understand, right, what is the lightest touch thing we can do right now, today, to prove or disprove some of this idea. And this whole concept of approach for us is vital. And it's really what enables us to go fast and scale. And I basically guarantee you don't have to spend an age building this pixel perfect thing to understand if it's a good idea. There's always something really basic you can do to prove that out. And for us, this is kind of, we know that this is a good approach. We know this works because this is the approach that we're kind of scaling across the entire organization. This is the approach that's helping us make those hearts and minds and cultural change. It's not something that just happens in digital. The agility as a concept is something you can take across the business. So here's a quick example of kind of what this looks like at Sky. So in both our traditional sort of agile environments and other areas. So over on the left, you've got your kind of basically sort of digital scrum, and where we embed our experimentation team right into that squad. They become an integral part of how that squad functions sort of day to day. They work really closely with product owners and stakeholders to turn their requirements and expectations into reality, but work really autonomously with the rest of the squad too. So developers, designers, really ensuring that everybody has the data, knowledge, and support that they need when it comes to experimentation setup. And that works really well in digital. It's a really simple sort of agile squad makeup. There'll be nothing there that's surprising to anybody who's worked in this space. But over on the right, you can see you can basically take this model and apply it to other teams and other functions. So at this point, rather than working with a product owner, maybe we're working with a program manager or perhaps a senior leader in the contact center, maybe somebody that works in our planning or even our learning and development teams. But we've got that same laser focus on turning these stakeholder requirements and expectations into reality and doing that quickly. Again, very similar to how this works across digital, we're then going off and working autonomously with the rest of their team. But rather than developers and designers, maybe we're working with recruitment planners. Maybe this is sort of L&D lesson planners, but still making sure that everybody has the data and support that they need when it comes to be able to set up a scientific experiment and kind of analyze that. So this organizational wide view for us is it's kind of really cemented this approach. And for us, it's really important to be democratizing this experimentation process right across the business. We're getting to a point now where it just runs like blood through the veins of the organization. It's not something that we think about, it's just something that happens. And we work with everybody across Sky, right from our senior finance team all the way through to our sort of customer service advisors that are answering the phone and speaking to customers in real time, sort of every day. And this has really helped us to really transverse that kind of online offline divide, and enable to embed our agility and our experimentation mindset beyond digital, beyond the normal approach to agile, and put this mindset everywhere where our customers are. There's a very simple truth in this, and it's something that if you really, really want to embrace agility you kind of need to really get your head around, and it will really, really help you drive this organizational change and cultural change to both agile and experimentation. When you take this approach, it will mean that some things just don't land the way that you expect. But I can guarantee that it's much better that we learn that lesson within the confines and the safe environment of a single user story, which has been rolled out as an experiment, rather than taking a very, very tough lesson from our customers further down the line when we've put a lot of time and effort into something that we've just launched. And this was one of the things that we kind of learned in the very early days, that when you really let customers tell you what they actually need, rather than us just thinking about what we think they need, you will fail. You'll fail a lot, and you know what? That's great, because the one thing that you will do is you'll learn, and you'll learn a lot. You'll learn so much more with this approach than you would ever do with any other approach. So to put this in context, my team, we actually have one of our KPIs as a team is to actually reduce the win rate for experimentation. And yeah, I know how crazy that sounds. Everybody wants bigger, more successful experiments, right? Everybody wants the bigger success numbers. But in real terms, what this means for us at Sky is that we're moving away from safe bets. What we're doing is we're testing things that are bigger. We're testing more unknown ideas. And like I said, these are the things that can really change the game for us. And in fact, we're probably one of the only teams within Sky who, so we run a regular session with our sort of most senior stakeholder, and we constantly tell her how much we fail. When we first started doing this, you could almost see the kind of faces on the kind of video chat or in the room that were like, hang on a minute, everybody else is talking about how successful they are, and you're here telling you how much you failed. It's a bit of a strange thing. But I mean, for us, and this is really important, it's not just about explaining that this didn't work. It's about explaining what we've learned. It's about explaining what we're going to do with this newfound knowledge next. Where are we going to take this now? This thing maybe didn't land like we expected, but here's what we're going to do to improve it. So super simple example. We had a bit of a no-brainer idea passed to us a couple of weeks ago. We kind of thought that if we shortened some of our diagnostic journeys on the website, customers would find them easier to complete, right? That makes sense. Simplify it, shorten it. It's going to be easier to complete. Customers are going to get it easier. Well, actually, this perceived wisdom that we had of shorten and simplify, we just learned that was wrong in this context. We learned that actually what customers need is more information to complete the task. They needed to know more about what we needed them to do. And sometimes it goes a little bit against that perceived wisdom. So we went again, we changed the content, we made the journeys longer and theoretically on paper, slightly more complicated. What that actually did is that really improved how customers were responding to these journeys. And that's where we win by kind of taking this idea of failure, learning from it and kind of moving forward. A couple of quick examples. Probably not going to talk through these. I think the slides are going to be shared afterwards. But these are just some sort of real world examples of where we've pivoted some teams towards an agile approach. Again, not going to run through these in any detail. If you've got any questions about these, just give me a shout in the chat. So just sort of moving past this really quickly. Again, this is kind of where I kind of wanted to leave things. And as I said, I genuinely believe that this is the most important message is you need to change your mindset and your culture, not just your process and your tooling. You need to focus on being agile, not just doing agile. There's a bit of a whistle-stop tour of what we're doing at Sky. I kind of hope it was interesting and useful.